Welcome to another Hashing Out interview. We got a fun one today. Brought on Zach. Zach, let's get this out of the way. Why don't you tell the audience who you are, what you do, where you came from, and then we can get into more fun stuff.
Yeah, sure. I'm Zak Cole. I am an engineer, and I run a venture studio called Number Group, and I'm also the president of the Ethereum Community Foundation, and I'm also the chief protocol officer at Oxbow and Privacy Pools. And I've been working in crypto for, oh man, I don't know, like over 10 years now.
Long time.
Yeah, too long, I guess. I should probably pivot into AI.
We'll get there. So, I mean, you've been around the space in a lot of different capacities. I don't know, before we dive into why I brought you on, like, how did you get into the ecosystem, and how did you find yourself here?
Yeah. I was in the Marine Corps in 2007 through 2011, and I was a network engineer, and I managed cryptographic assets for Department of Defense. And during that time period, I got into Tor, and then that led me to find out about Bitcoin, which was interesting to me. And then when Ethereum came out, I got into Ethereum strictly because Imogen Heap uploaded a song to the blockchain, and I liked the Garden State soundtrack.
We interviewed her. We interviewed her about that back in 2015 on the Bitcoin podcast.
2015.
It was nuts. We're like, we're interviewing Imogen Heap.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the DAO hack happened, and I kind of like got wrecked on that, and then but that was made it more interesting to me when ETH recovered, and then I went all in on ETH, and I've been building full time in Ethereum since then, and I've started a bunch of companies and had a few exits, and I just build and ship cool stuff. It's pretty much what I do.
So here's an interesting question for you that may be, I don't know, enlightening to the audience, because you've been doing that, and you've done it a number. You've built and shipped successfully and exited successfully a number of times. Do you feel like the opportunity to continue to do that is less than it used to be? Because I mean, if you just look at the bare 2017 era, where like I can ship a white paper and an ICO and make millions and millions and millions of dollars and walk away, compared to now, like clearly the competency required to be successful has changed. Is the opportunity less?
I guess it depends on what you mean by opportunity. I mean, if you think you can ship a white paper and raise $10 million, I don't think that, well, I don't know, maybe it is.
You need to be really connected.
Yeah, I don't think that's very feasible. I mean, granted, I never did any of that. And the opportunity, I feel like, for me is the same as it's always been. I mean, there's like pretty much infinite upside. This is a pretty nascent industry still, even though we've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
I think there's still plenty of opportunity. If you're like building cool stuff because you enjoy building cool stuff, then it's like, you know, it's a green field. But if you're just trying to like max extract, then I don't know, you're probably screwed, but you probably would be anyway. But maybe not. I don't know. The meme coin thing, like there's always some narrative that allows people to just max extract. But yeah, I think that the opportunity is as good as it's ever been.
Can I ask what projects you've been involved in terms of shipping and maybe exiting?
Yeah, sure. My first company that I exited was Whiteblock, and that was a protocol level testing framework. We worked on, we built and then used the product that we built to work on. It's Whiteblock, like white, WHITE. And then
we talked a long time ago about this.
Yeah, I was working on it for a while, probably about 5 years. And then After that, I started Slingshot, which was a DEX aggregator. And that was acquired by Magic Eden. And then after that, we did Code Arena. Code Arena was acquired by Zelic.
Oh, you founded
with
Code Arena?
Yeah, I came up with the
Oh.
whole model for the competitive audits.
Oh, I didn't know
Proof
that.
because-
DOS wasn't a blockchain.
It's kind of like our spicy
That's a good one.
thing that we worked on. And
Were you inspired by Jepson for when you're making Whiteblock? Kind of.
like the testing stuff.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't. I didn't know. I wasn't aware of it, but I became aware of it after working in testing for a while.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's pretty cool one. Then after Code Arena, I started Number Group and worked on a bunch of stuff through Number Group. And one of the projects we've incubated is Oxbow and privacy pools. So that's pretty much, I've been working on Number Group for, I don't know, about 3-4 years now, something like that. And, you know, we're a pretty small team. But what we do is we just like ship stuff, come up with cool ideas, bring them to market.
Nice.
Which is what I wrote the tool for, the spec tool. Now it's full circle.
Perfect. I mean, like that's kind of where my better than my transition. It's clear that your concept of building is more rigorous than what I would consider to be the standard in today.
Yeah, I'm very specific and very picky about, you know, processes, and I have a very specific process that I bring to all of my projects. And it seems to have worked pretty well because, you know, I've had 4 exits. I think statistically that's fairly unlikely to have 1, let alone 4. And I just kind of like fumbled my way into those. I didn't really I just kind of conform to this process and stick to it. And that's how I build products. And that's how I develop. And that's kind of like how I live and die by the process, you know.
You
So
walk
what
us through
is
that process?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you have an idea for a product, so we're like a venture studio, we build a bunch of products. Everybody should have an idea. If anyone has an idea, they can bring it to the team, they can propose it. The way that we do that is we have like an executive overview, like a feature brief, kind of like a product brief. And it's like a TLDR that's like, hey, this is the product that I want to build. This is the problems that it addresses in the market. Here's why I think it'll have product market fit. Here's how we can monetize it or scale it or whatever. And then everybody reviews that, provides feedback. If there's consensus on like, you know, hey, this is what we should ship, then we kick it into a product requirements document, which is a specification that defines the business objectives of the product, how the user is expected to interact with it. We have personas. There's like a bunch of stuff. It's a pretty standard PRD, but it just kind of like defines the success of the product. And the idea for all behind this whole process is that by the time we start writing code, everybody understands and agrees like what we're building, like on what we're building.
Yeah.
So nobody goes into it kind of like without knowing exactly what we're doing. And everybody has already provided feedback. It's already undergone like, you know, rigorous, you know, cycles of like editing and modifying and just like changing based on everybody's, you know, opinions essentially, based on their role. And the PRD kind of acts as like the single source of truth across all departments. So that's like in like engineering, marketing, executive team, whatever. Everybody references this PRD throughout the process. Then once the PRD is locked in, after it's gone through a few rounds of iteration, we work on the technical specification, and that kind of defines the architecture and the high level technical requirements for the product, how it's going to be built. And all of this saves engineering hours. Like at a company, on a team, at a tech company, engineering is like the most costly thing. So we don't want, and also engineers have a tendency to over-engineer. Like they'll keep drilling down for as long as you let them. So it's really important.
Good enough isn't like, unless good enough is defined, they'll make their own, and it's usually way overkill.
Right. So you need to define that within the technical specification within the PRD. That's why it's important that the PRD defines what is done and what's, like what's good enough. Like don't keep spinning your wheels on something. Like we want to ship something quickly. We want to get something into the market so we can verify whether or not we have users, whether there's any type of inkling of product market fit. And I like to move really fast. Like if I'm working on something and I ship it and it doesn't work and people don't like it and it sucks, then I don't really like to buy into the sunk cost fallacy. It's like, all right, let's forget about that project. Done. It's done. Like, like let's move on to the next thing quickly. Like, so I want to fail fast so we can get to the next successful thing. And I've had a litany of failures, life is just a series of failures with like, a couple wins sprinkled in there. And I think it's important to kind of learn from those failures, but also just forget about them and move on to the next thing. Like that's it. Like you're at a casino. You're hitting the, you gotta like, you're hitting the blackjack table. You move on to the next table. You don't really dwell on the last one,
What's the time from start to finish in terms of how long do you give a project to try to get PMF and then before you just ditch it?
It really depends. I generally like to have a product built from concept to implementation, ideally within like, I mean, it depends on every project.
It depends on the complexity and then
But generally I want to build something that takes 2 weeks to a month to put out there. It depends on what we want to build though. Like a lot of the things
you have good technical specifications, the building part becomes easier and easier depending upon how well you're able to leverage AI and how complex it is, things like this.
And then on a long enough timeline, as you build things and continue to build them, you start to develop a library of reusable components that you can just plug and play. So it gets easier and easier. As long as you conform to these processes, you can move really fast. And that's what I want to do because, we're mostly playing with our own money. We're self-funded. So it's like, it's literally time is money. So like, we can't really afford, and we're paying for it. Like, we didn't go do like some crazy raise and like, we don't have like a bunch of money. Right. So we eat what we kill. So I want to get out there. I want to ship things quickly. I want to see if it works or not. We set KPIs. Generally my KPI is like, let's get 10 users. And then like the big KPI is let's make $1. I'm not even trying to make $100 here. If anyone in the world is willing to give me $1 for what we've built, then that's enough validation to keep the project alive for another day. But don't get caught in this like sunk cost fallacy. That's like, like where you're just, we put so much time into it. Like we can't abandon it now. It's like, you should. You probably should. Like most projects don't need to exist. Like, like let alone have a token or whatever, or like a raise or anything. Like just because you have an idea doesn't mean you need to raise money for it or like marry it. Like, strong convictions loosely held.
One of the things, so you probably know this, but I work with Dimitri on a storage protocol and we've been working on that for like 4 years now. And so I'm in like shipping mode in terms of trying to squeeze out something that normal people can touch and feel the protocol, understand how it works, because it's basically like BitTorrent plus persistence of the data. And my mentality is definitely aligned with yours in terms of I'm only giving myself a month to ship a client, like a BitTorrent client, essentially, and then seeing if I can get traction with some users quickly, and then try to monetize it right after.
And if nobody likes it, then like sorry, but
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
don't keep trying to like don't try to force like a square block into a round hole. Just like move
Yeah.
on with your life. You have only so much energy and attention that you can give something, and if it's not
Yeah.
serving you, move on. Like
How do you budget things? Like, for instance, you were saying that you're bootstrapping everything. We're doing the same thing. So again, same mentality, like time is money. We have to move fast. How do you guys figure out what projects are worth greenlighting and how much to give them in terms of runway?
yeah, I give them the minimum amount, like until there's some sort of validation, external validation that, you know, comes from someone that's not me,
Users.
you know? Yeah. Yeah. If you don't like, and then at that point, we try to like calculate the total addressable market. And then we figure out how much, you know, how much of that can we consume. And then we calculate that based on the amount of capital we have available. But generally, the answer is as little as possible for as long as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of vibes. Like, really, I'm not. Like, I don't have like a great heuristic for that. It's kind of just guessing, like going with my gut based on like experience. But
Feels as though your gut's doing a pretty good job then.
sometimes it does a very poor job. Like, don't get like there's tons like I am a failure.
You got a lot of failures that you haven't
statistically
publicized.
like a failure. Like, you know, like, but you got to just be able to move on and like, yeah, I'm gonna have 100 million more failures today. Yeah.
But like you mentioned, like the core process is live and die by this method of doing things.
Yeah.
And because it's been successful for you, and like statistically, you're doing a pretty good job. How has that process changed over the course of you doing it? Because if you just look at, you know, what you prioritize or value within a PRD versus what you call a technical spec is differentiated. Like I have a bunch of things that I will probably either fork or PR into this adversarial specs so that I can use it for how I plan to do things within logos. Because we've been trying to follow specification-driven development for a long time, which is mostly modeled after the IETF. And that's a very different process than PRD and technical spec. But like maybe the simplicity of what you have here is sufficient for like actually shipping good things. So I'm just curious, like how have you felt that process change over the course of the time of like what you consider good?
I think like at the beginning, I was more like, oh, we have to be agile. We need to use Jira and like, we need to do this and we need to do that and use this particular tool in this way. And that was because I came from like enterprise. I was working in like enterprise tech and I was like, well, this is what they do, so it must work. But it doesn't. And realistically, you need to be, yeah, it's stupid. Like don't be married to any one of those things. Like I think like the important thing is to be very strict on the things that matter. And the things that matter are communication and making sure that everybody's on the same page. And that's ultimately what the spec does. And then if they choose to use Jira or they want to do whatever, like it doesn't really matter. As long as everybody's conforming to the same process and they're rowing in the same direction, like the details don't really matter. So overall, like we use these specs as like a roadmap for like how we're going to ship something. And as long as we all stay on that same course, it works. So some teams that I'm with like to use Notion and they like to use Linear, and then others like to use GitHub, and then others like to use Google Docs. And like a lot of people get hung up on the details over like we should use this platform versus that platform. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. All that matters is that everybody is in sync and they're on the same page and they're rowing in the same direction. That's all that matters.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
And a lot of teams will kind of bike shed about like I've been on teams where they're like using Confluence, and then like halfway through a cycle they'll be like, you know, I don't like Confluence, I'm going to switch to Linear, and then they argue about it, and then it's like 2 weeks of wasted work just like going back and forth debating the virtues of one platform versus the other. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter at all. Like you could write it in Google Docs as long as everybody understands and they're moving, like that's all that matters.
Have you had a hard time convincing them that like all that matters is the spec?
I
Like
think
everything's
that
kind of
like,
downstream from that in terms of like.
yeah, I think that like some teams are like they conflate moving fast with like not having any shit to like guide them or anything like that. And
or just build it. You don't need any documentation. Just build it. We'll do that later.
yeah, a lot of people, and then you end up in this situation where one engineer's built something and this other guy has a completely different idea, and now the code base that they've both worked on independently like doesn't really work. It doesn't match.
Like there's no mechanical sympathy associated.
And then
with
you
it.
have to go back and you have to start from scratch again to make sure that all of these parties are aligned and building the same thing. Because I've been on projects and had teams where different people are building completely different things and they all think they're building the same thing. But they are all like, oh, we're moving fast. We don't have time to like do this and that. And it's like, oh, it takes too much time and too many cycles to like lock in a PRD and like a tech spec. Like it doesn't like that's stupid. Like because you literally are wasting time. Like there's nothing wrong with making sure everybody's aligned. I mean, that's like exactly what you should be doing. And that's the goal.
But there was some, like, ostensibly, there's an impetus for you to build this Claude tool. So, like, I guess for those that aren't aware, you shipped a Claude skill in a repository called Adversarial Spec, which is a way in which you can either build a spec or PRD from scratch or improve the quality of one that you already have by having a bunch of LLMs, disparate LLMs, argue about it.
Yeah.
And so you have a number of templates on what a good PRD or spec is, and some variations around quality or perspectives in there, which we can get to maybe later. But like the idea is that you have a bunch of LLMs argue about these things, and Claude is kind of the arbitrator / one of the arguers and arbitrator of this discussion. And in the end, hopefully, it spits out a quality document that you can then move forward with. I assume you built that because the quality of things wasn't good enough, or the time to get to that level of quality was taking too long. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it was just too long. I mean, I worked on PRDs for like a couple weeks, and it's a pain in the ass. And you have to go back and forth and iterate and get feedback from different stakeholders. And like, again, this is a process that I use on every one of my projects. Like, this is what defines me as a product engineer. Like, you know, this is what I do. And it's taken years to like refine that process. So I'm going to these new teams, I'm building new teams, I'm putting them together, and like, I'm trying to bring this process to them. And it's just a lot easier to use AI for that. And it's something that I was doing manually. I would like write my own PRD. I'd drop it into ChatGPT. I'd be like, hey, what do you think of this? Give me feedback on it. And kind of, you know, obviously it's like a little more eloquent of a prompt, but that's like, and then it would output something. And then I would copy that and I'd put it into Claude. And I'd be like, hey, Claude, ChatGPT's working on this with me. What do you think? And then it would come up with some criticism. And it's stuff that I sometimes wouldn't even think about. It would surface. So that was really valuable. And this is a process that generally I'm relying on the rest of the team to kind of act as like the rubber ducky for that. But I could just use LLMs for that now. And then once the final product is available, and this is something that I can pretty much get consensus among all these LLMs within like 7 cycles. So like within an hour or two, I'm pretty much reducing a 2-week work cycle to like a day. And then the output is like pretty much good. It's like 90%.
I was playing around with it on a couple like draft specs that we have running around, and I was like, well, I covered some corner cases, found some problems, just like with the simplest of setups than what you have here, because you can get pretty complex with what you shipped. Just having 2 of them argue gave me what I would consider a better quality output, and allowed me to ask better questions on like, hey, what do you think about this part that isn't covered here?
Right. Yeah.
One question that I have is like team size, right? So like, for instance, my experience with working at Logos is like it's a big organization, right? It's like 200 plus people. There's a lot of voices, a lot of stakeholders, like a lot of random
opinions.
stakeholders you didn't. Yeah, so many opinions. So like
Yeah.
each of like Codex, right, was like a team of like almost 20 people, but then you have stakeholders outside of the 20 people. So like it blew up in terms of like I did a PRD for Codex, right, long time ago, and I don't think anybody really looked at it. So like there was like different breakdowns in flow in terms of number of people who wanted to be involved or should be involved. And one of the questions I have is like, how big should a team be, and how big is your team?
I mean, the way that I think and the way that I work is not conducive to large teams. I think that like there's diminishing returns. I'm a big fan of the 2 pizza rule. Like your team should never be larger than like than can share, you know, a pizza essentially.
I like that.
Yeah. So my team number group were 6 people, and we've you know, we bring contractors on and like, you know, tag people in on a project like per project basis. But I don't see a world where we need more than that. If you need more people to, I mean, the Constitution was written with like a dozen people. Why would you need more?
That puts even further impetus on quality specs too. If you're dealing with contractors and
of course,
and freelancers, is that you need to make sure that they're under the same expectations that you are, so you can leave them alone and they come back with meeting
exactly. Yeah. And so that's what I want in people that are on my team is like, I want people that are like, you know, have agency and are self-managing. And I want them to come in and tell me what to do. I don't want to have to hire somebody that I have to like constantly manage. That's a pain in the ass. I don't really like employees. I don't like people that are like taking orders. I want people that are collaborative and like on my level. And, you know, most people are not like that. Like a lot of people just don't have agency. They kind of sit there until you tell them what to do. And that's like a waste of time and space. And people like that should just leave me alone.
Work in enterprise.
Yeah, go work at fucking Amazon or some shit. Go work at like a 500, 2,000 person company. Like get out of here. I don't have time for that. It pisses me off.
Well, it's kind of the thing. Like I take that mentality and the type of environment that needs to exist for you to work well and ship things. And for me, it has a very strong overlap with like what I consider open source software culture. And if you want to allow for the engagement of open source contributors, you have to have these things in place. Otherwise, you can't have the same. You can't row in the same direction with a bunch of random ass people that you don't even know exist unless you have these things in place.
Right. You need like everything, like your code base needs to be commented. You need to have documentation. You need to have specifications. You need to have like everything set up so that somebody can come in and pick up where you left off. Like if you die tomorrow, what's that?
Without talking to you.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you die or if you get fired, like everything needs to be in a state that like allows you to like allows somebody else to come in and pick up the work. And even if you don't get fired, like you should always be training somebody to take your place, because that allows you to kind of like scale yourself and move on and like, you know, become better at what you do. Like always be training somebody to take your place. Always be writing code that other people can pick up. Like don't like leave like it's really easy to just not to ignore those things and just like keep drilling down on building something, you know. But like a part of something being functional is its ability to outlive and outlast you. Because ultimately at the end of the day, that's what I want to do, is build things that outlast me. I want to build things that are like bigger than me. That's like that's the only impact I can really have on the world, is like the skills that I've developed and like the products that I'm able to build. I want them to outlast me, you know. And the only way to do that is by communicating effectively and making sure that your code base is clean, making sure everything is commented appropriately, making sure that everything is set up for success, so that way it can do that and outlive you.
How do you signal for, like, for instance, I've read like several hiring manager experiences, and it seems like people in larger organizations tend to hire people who have a subset of their skills, who potentially are limited in their self-development. In terms of like what you were saying, is you expect people to give you feedback, to kind of like you feel friction because they're providing new ideas, they're doing things unilaterally, like there's agency. A lot of people don't have that, and it seems like I see organizations blow up with people who are not, they don't have agency, and they don't develop new skill sets, and it almost seems like people are trying to hire someone who they can just forever manage, and then they just live in that management zone, and then like that's like Amazon and these big organizations. It's awful.
Well, those are the frameworks that we have to kind of grow from, right? It's like it's hard to grow up with looking at how the internet and companies have scaled, and then not model yourself after that. Like,
yeah,
I don't understand.
You quickly realize, like, it doesn't work. Yeah. Like you need to feel the burn of your money being lost because you're not doing things. Like, you can get lost in the comfort because an organization pays you well, grows big. Like, and that's exactly what I don't want to be in, right? That's the environment that stunts most people, it seems like.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. Like, I mean, it's pretty easy to be like, oh, it's a cushy job. You could do this for the rest of your life, and just kind of like live there. It's kind of fucked. I mean, like I've had friends that like work at like these big FANG companies and like Apple and stuff. And I have this one friend in particular that worked at Apple, and he was never working, and it was just like he was always playing video games.
Like Big Head in the Silicon Valley.
Yeah. like he wasn't, and he never really wanted to, like, but he doesn't have like, he's not very like motivated, I guess. It's just like one of those guys I grew up with, went to college with, he's a cool dude, one of my good friends, but like doesn't really have like the drive to do better and to grow. He just wants to take that job, sit there and take a paycheck for the rest of his life, which is fine. He's making good money. I'm sure it's more money than he ever thought he would make. So like, that's good. But I don't know. I want to like, I don't know. I always need more. I don't know if that's like a good thing or a bad thing. Sure, it's bad in a lot of ways, but like, I just want to like keep trying and growing and scaling,
What's that impact, right? Like, I think it's a admirable thing to want in the way that you want it, because you're saying like you want to build things that outlast you and outgrow you. And that's just, in my opinion, I mean, that's just like the millennial in us of like, I want to have impact, right? Like, I want the things I do to be meaningful because we watched our parents do things that weren't. And like, that's what you're trying to do. And so wanting to do more, at least the way I interpret it, is wanting to have more impact and build things that actually have something that are valuable to society.
Yeah. I don't want to just, I don't know. You only have so much time and energy. Like, look at your life as like a glass of water. You only have so much you can distribute to other vessels, so like you might as well make it count.
I remember reading like an Arnold Schwarzenegger quote is like, he just wanted to be useful. And so he did a whole bunch of different things to find other people finding him useful.
Yeah. Arnold's a good guy. I think.
Constantly coming.
Sorry.
So back to that one. Bringing it back to, because like if you want to, here's a quality segue. If you would like to distribute your water in a way that is efficient so that things grow, typically you try and do that through tooling. You can that amplify your output, gives you leverage. An adversarial spec, in my opinion, is something that you feel does that. Is it where you want it to be? Like, you shipped it, so it's some level of quality of good for you. What do you hope or expect or plan for it to grow or change? Is it good enough, or is it something that you can see the complexity grow, or are you concerned with like it becoming too complex and becoming too cumbersome?
Yeah, I think it's at the point now where like the features and the functionality are like pretty robust. I think it's fine. I think it's good. And then my criteria for success would be, all right, this is an open source project. Are people going to contribute to it? And so far there have been there have been over half a dozen contributors to this within the past 5 days that it's been out, and people are opening pull requests and they're submitting issues. So I think that's like a pretty good criteria for success. It was like a simple open source tool that automates a process that I engage in on a daily basis, and it makes it a lot easier. So putting it out there, I think it's good to go. So the thing that I would like to continue to research is like this multi-model, like adversarial process of like refinement, and thinking about different ways that that can be applied, because I don't see a whole lot about it. Like there's not a lot of people out there there's not a lot of stuff that I can find that like.
I haven't seen the adversarial model too much. I mean, there's some that throw things in training.
Yeah, I've read research papers on it, but it's like not really like a research paper type guy. It's like, just show me how it works. Like I'd rather just figure it out and ship the product, as opposed to like, pontificating on the academic implications of this.
That's why I asked about useful. That's why I asked about your like how you view the template for this type of thing. Because if you're going to use an adversarial setting, they're arguing over something. And that's going to be some context you give them on like what the ideal is. And that's this template. So if you look at like the skill.markdown file, that defines what you call good in a lot of ways. And then the different models in their different viewpoints argue over what good is.
Right.
And so you get to some final point. So like, how do you see the direction of good for these types of things? Or do you think that like, is the improvement going to be the artifact that you call good and how you reason around those things and the prioritization of each point? Or is it the quality of the arguing, or is it both?
Yeah, I think it's both. I think quality is definitely important though. I mean, so I kind of like address that in this model by, like if a model agrees early on, then it's important that it gets pressed on why it agrees. Like it's like, actually in my experience, I've tested all of the models, and just like a funny side note is like Grok is actually the laziest model.
The most laid back one's the laziest. That's
yeah. Like it has been presented with things, and it's like, yeah, it looks good to me. And
LGTM.
It's like, wait, you don't have any like feedback on it. Why don't you have feedback?
You even put that in the
you just gotta wait for the Memphis supercomputer that they have there to kick up. Maybe you'll get some feedback.
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know. The model's like not that great at like abstract thought and like, a lot of other things, not in the same way that like Claude and ChatGPT and Gemini are.
Yeah. New ChatGPT 5.2 is pretty great.
Yeah, so I put 5.2 against like Opus and like against Gemini and all those models, and it works pretty good. Yeah, but yeah, just wanted to say Grok is the laziest model for anyone who's
good. Have you seen like adding in the different perspectives? You can put on different personas like QA and stuff.
Yeah.
Have you used those for like you have a feeling as though a spec doesn't have a good viewpoint done? Are you using that persona just to improve on that thing when you do that, or like how are you using those things?
What can you be a little more specific?
What's the point of using a persona for you? Why did you add that in?
Like so different models can take the role of different personas. You mean like, is that what you mean?
Yeah, like why would you even add in that specific thing? It was because like you saw some lack within a given specification, and you wanted to add in the ability to hone in on that thing. Is that why you added it?
Yeah, and also different models are good at different things too. So applying them, like assigning them roles within a cycle is pretty good. I mean, that's like a useful thing, having them focus on particular areas. But I mean, I just want to create something that's more, it's kind of like versatile. So you could say, all right, this is what, I don't know, just something that's like more diverse.
How do you, clearly you built this because you feel as though this is something LLMs are good at, and it saves you time. So it's,
Yeah, well, I mean, LLMs I think they're better at stuff like this than they are at writing code, just because it's language specific and it's about communication and it's like about reasoning. I think that they're pretty good and they excel quite well in that. So I trust it to do this specification more than I trust it to write code.
It's also a little less the stakes are a little lower. Like they're not going to delete your code base, right? I mean, like
Right. Yeah.
or
And
like you can't. It's harder to reason around some complex code base additions than it is around this human read document that is meant for clarity.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely spend a lot more time arguing with AI about code implementation than I do about writing specs. It's pretty easy to like just write a good spec with an LLM, and it's like most of the time it's better than what I would come up with myself, even with my team. Code different, totally different story. Like because LLMs will they'll straight up lie to you. They'll like gaslight you about shit. And when it comes to code, it's like totally.
You're exactly right.
Yeah. And then no, it'll also just like it's like, okay, this test isn't passing. Like so usually I'm like, all right, writing code should be pretty easy. You write a test. If the function conforms to that test and the output, conforms to like what that test defines, then it should be good to go and you should just be able to trust it. But then the model will, like if the tests aren't passing, so I've seen it do this more times than
remove tests.
Say, yeah, exactly. It'll modify the test to be like, okay, this passes. And it's like, hold on, are these smoke tests? Or like, did you edit the tests? You modified the test. And even I'll explicitly have like a Claude MD that's like, don't modify tests, don't do this, don't do that. And it'll do that stuff anyway. Like it doesn't even listen to you. And then so you have to pay attention to like exactly what the output is in your terminal to make sure that it's not like taking these like cutting corners and like finding loopholes and like doing a bunch of weird lazy shit. Like it's pretty crazy. So at that point, I might as well just be writing the code myself. Like, it's like more work to babysit an LLM to make sure it's implementing something the way that I want it to than it would be to just do it myself. Yeah. So it's like, so anyway, the point is that writing specs is a lot. It's a lot easier to like write the spec than it is to like write functional code using an LLM.
It's interesting to see how we figure out how to leverage these things effectively, right? Because like that's the kind of the whole thing is like, what is it going to be good at? And like you have this full tilt shift when we came past the threshold of quality where everyone uses it for everything and says it's going to change the world and take over everybody's jobs and bullshit. And then people are like, actually, it can't build anything of complexity and it kills your test. So like we have to back off that and find some middle ground. And it's interesting to see where that boundary is, not only with what we have today, but as it progresses, how that boundary changes. Because maybe one day it just does it all. But for now, it's like, no, let's stick to the, human reasoning thing.
Yeah, I think that like we're still in this like discovery period with AI, and it's like, okay, what is it good at and what can it do? Like ask ChatGPT is pretty great at a lot of things, but ask it to show you a dolphin emoji. And you will break it. Be like, is there a
how many A's are in tomato? Then like
that's been fixed, but yeah.
Try asking it to show you a dolphin emoji, and it will break.
Me a dolphin emoji. Let's try.
Here's a question.
I did it.
Good?
We're getting better.
We tried. I tried it last week. The dolphin emoji.
Here,
which one did you use?
I'll share screen. No, ChatGPT 5.2. Yeah, here. I'll add it to
the greatest and the best and greatest can handle the dolphin emoji. All right, good deal.
There you go.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, we tried it last week.
You'll figure it out. You'll get there.
Yeah, I don't.
Oh no! Wait. Ask, is there a seahorse emoji?
Here. Is there a seahorse emoji?
Ask, is there a seahorse emoji?
Nope.
There is a seahorse emoji.
Horse, fish, shrimp, shell. Please show seahorse.
Okay. What if you just say, show me a seahorse emoji?
There isn't.
There's a seahorse emoji.
And a cute text seahorse. Apparently that's a text seahorse. That looks more like a dick to me, but how about this as a question? As you try to leverage this thing, have you found it more useful to use yourself, or are you getting your teams to use it when they present things to you?
I built this because I needed it. And all the stuff that I build that I like the most, that people seem to like the most, are things that I build because I need them.
Because I want to use this thing, right? Like I don't know if it's end up like I need to try to proselytize this to everyone so that when they're building things, they come up with better quality. Because like I'm always interested in using AI to improve the quality of my work to a point where like when I present it to other people, it's better.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of like the big value proposition for it. But like it also kind of helps. Like I'm training a new product manager kind of, and trying to get him locked in on like product processes it's kind of hard to like, how do you teach somebody to write a good spec? Like, you know, this kind of like reduces a lot of the friction in that, because I could just be like, hey, use this plugin, like use this tool.
And you just train them for a day on using, like setting up their environment correctly.
And then I don't have to like pound it into his brain about like, oh, this PRD needs more user personas. And then they're like, well, what's a user persona? Like, you know, it's like, well, here you go. Like, just
so that goes back to having good documentation. Like the skill itself is good documentation. And then like I found it interesting. As the complexity of AI progressed and we have continued to struggle to figure out how to use it, that the way in which we're coalescing is give the LLM good context so that it can go off and do the job by itself. And I found that to be the exact same fucking thing you're doing with humans.
Yeah.
Like it's literally when you're managing a project, your goal as a project manager is to give them the right context so they can be useful by themselves and not talk to anybody.
Yep.
And so like it's funny to me that where we're coming in terms of like context engineering and learning how to leverage these AIs is literally the same thing that project managers have been trying to get across for a long time. And now it's useful because we can just say like the turnaround time of getting an LLM to be useful allows you to make documents and text or artifacts, what the fuck I'm gonna call them, so fast that like, oh, that is actually the way to do it. Is this? And so like maybe it's just because the speed of turnaround was so much faster that it's easier to get that point across.
Yeah, I guess on the topic of context, another interesting feature that I implemented is the like interview process. So if you don't have a PRD, you could just kind of describe what you want, and then it will prompt you with questions to figure out like what it is you want exactly. And then you could also just use that interview mode if you have like an existing PRD. But I think that provides a lot more context.
Yeah, reads it, asks some questions, gets some clarifying questions, improves it. And that way you're like, in a sense, you're doing that step I mentioned of like improving the quality of something that you have before giving it to somebody else, even for the LLM, right? Like you're seeing as like, before we have multiple LLMs argue about this thing, how about we get it to a state where like that argument's useful? And then you get that done, and it's like, now we've done a bunch of LLM arguments to get this document into a really what we would consider useful state. Now it's really good to give to another human and have them argue about it, or like leverage it for whatever work they need to do. I like this mental process of like how you leverage LLMs to not make slop and build things that are actually useful for building.
Yeah, it's super easy to just put out a bunch of infinite slop with AI, you know. Yeah, I just built something that I wanted, and this is what I needed. It helps me. So seems like it's helpful to other people too. It's gotten pretty good traction. But I think mostly what I'm interested in is exploring that like multi-model kind of adversarial pattern. I don't think a lot of people haven't really done that. So
yeah, it's
like,
interesting.
at least publicly, I would
yeah.
I would suspect that like most people are doing this stuff, but they're just like, it's like alpha. Like the way that you use your AI and stuff like that. But I'm not like,
similar to how you started, right? Of like you put it in ChatGPT, you copy and paste it into Claude and say like, what do you think? You know, like, and this is a much more agentic way of doing it that ends up with something that's reasonably useful faster. I'm curious about how it changes over time and how you can, like, what the effective way of altering personas is. Like, do you have some? Can you like maybe setting some specific devil's advocate in there of like trying to fuck things up. Is
right.
Like,
like have a model that just their role is to
be an idiot.
Just or yeah, or that, or just disagree.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to like it's hard because at some point you're going to reach like diminishing returns, right?
Yeah.
So what are you going to do? Like how do you identify that area so you're not like over engineering and like over complicating the process?
Yeah, because like ultimately speaking, I mean, this is something that a guy, one of my colleagues, Jacek, has said when discussing specifications. It's like to him, like people always ask him, like, what's a spec? He's like, it's the minimal amount of information you can give me where I understand what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it's like that minimal amount is, I think, a really key point, because you don't want to over specify what's going on, but you need sufficient amount of information to get the job done. So like finding that boundary is like where you're really after when doing this type of thing.
Yeah, that's kind of hard to quantify. I mean, I think it's like different for everybody, like everyone, like what I need in order, like the context that I require in order to do something without any feedback is different than yours. Right. Yeah. So it's kind of nebulous. It's not really quantifiable. It's not like a deterministic level. Like everybody's is different. So how can you create something that's like good enough for most people? I think that's probably what you need to do.
What I think my litmus test for this is if someone asks me a question, and the question is a product of them going through and trying to answer it via this document first, then that communication is already more efficient.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They've already gone through the process of trying to understand through this document. And if they didn't get to it when they come to me, that communication is very efficient.
Yeah. Why say more word when fewer word do trick?
Yeah.
My girlfriend, I always look at her and like, I just want her to contextualize the way I look at her without verbalizing anything so that she knows exactly what I need at any moment. Like I told her, like at some point you'll know me well enough that you'll have like, and everything I do will be etched into your mind. And same, like likewise, right? Because like I'll know exactly her mannerisms, the way she'll react to certain things, and you know, it's interesting. It's like, but you're trying to scale one person's potential idea that you reach consensus in such a way that, like you're saying, you minimize communication.
Yeah. It's no back
like
and
hive
forth.
mind. Yeah.
Maybe that's what we're building towards with AI.
Don't talk to me.
Borg shit.
All right, man. I definitely appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah.
I hope that people watch this and leverage this tool. I've already found it useful, even in just my understanding of things and how I can maybe help people proselytize the idea of specifications and PRDs more. Is there something else you would have liked to talk about that we didn't get to?
No, not really. Yeah, pretty much covered it. Cool to talk about this stuff. Yeah, I'm interested in, you know, how we can kind of apply that like multi-model adversarial pattern to additional you know, use cases. Like how's it going to be good for writing code or like shipping a better product outside of strictly the specification phase, like testing, QA, whatever. QA might be interesting actually. So yeah, I'm just thinking about different ways, different things I can build that would kind of help research and explore that area.
Well, anybody listening has some ideas, hit us up, ship something, make a PR. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.